Madam Speaker, I rise to commend this bill to the House. Madam Speaker, before I get started on my contribution, I just want to correct a few things that the Leader of the Opposition spoke about. She spoke about how the Opposition went and spoke to industry, and also they said that she said that the cost of business in the Territory is too high. I just want to point out that the previous Labor government had 8 years to listen to industry, Madam Speaker. They had 8 years to do something about doing the cost of business in the Northern Territory, and they failed. They didn't do anything. In fact, our economy was ranked last. People were leaving the Territory. Crime was going through the roof. So if the Opposition really did go and listen to industry and speak to people that she spoke about, she would understand that that's why there was a change of government in August last year, Madam Speaker, because the cost of business in the Territory was going through the roof and it was too high. Madam Speaker, there's been a lot of misinformation about this piece of legislation, and the Leader of the Opposition, in my view, added to that misinformation. Madam Speaker. She spoke about the exemption power, and she spoke about how an unelected official is going to have this overarching power to reach in and exempt projects from all sorts of legislation and things like that. And she talked about that a lot, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, but it appears that she may not have read the legislation. Madam Speaker, I draw your attention and the House's attention to Division 4 of the legislation, and in particular Section 79 of the Act. And this talks about exemption notices, and Madam Speaker, I think this is probably one of the most topical powers that this Territory Coordinator has got, and there's been a lot of misinformation that unelected bureaucrats are going to go and be able to just exempt projects, and just like the Leader of the Opposition spoke about in the last 15 minutes or so, Madam Speaker, in my view, that is clearly misinformation. That is clearly not correct, Madam Speaker, and I'll back that up by, I'll read out Section 79, subsection 1. Subject to subsection 2, the Territory Coordinator may recommend to the Minister that the Minister gives an exemption notice in relation to a statutory decision. So I'll read that again. The Territory Coordinator may recommend to the Minister that the Minister gives an exemption notice. So the misinformation, Madam Speaker, that we just heard just literally 10 minutes ago, and also out in the commentary into the media, is exactly that, Madam Speaker, misinformation. The legislation is quite clear. The Minister gives the exemption notice. And then, Madam Speaker, it goes further than that. The Minister then must table that exemption notice into sittings between 1 and 6 days after as soon as it's possible, essentially, Madam Speaker. So the next time the Parliament sits, that exemption notice must be brought into this chamber and debated. And then the Act goes on and says that resolution or that can be disallowed. So not only was the misinformation spread by the Leader of Opposition then incorrect, because only the Minister may issue an exemption notice, and again, anyone's listening, you can read Section 79 1A of the draft bill. And then, after the Minister makes that decision, the Minister must bring it to this very House for debate. And this legislation allows for the House to reverse or disallow that exemption notice. So, Madam Speaker, it's just clear that the misinformation out there in the public, and it is upsetting because the legislation is very clear. And the Leader of the Opposition, I'm interested to hear what the other crossbenchers have to say about this exemption power now. I've brought it to their attention, and again, you've got some time. Go and read Division 4 and talk some Section 77 up to 82 to anyone who wants to hear about that, because that is the part of this legislation, Madam Speaker, part of the bill that deals with exemption power. And it's clear, the Minister may. And then that the Minister must table it. And it's not even that the Coordinator may recommend to the Minister, the Minister gives. So we're talking may, so it's not an absolute. So, Madam Speaker, it's the Minister, and then it's this House who makes a decision about an exemption power. That's how serious and how high level it has to be for that power to come into play. And yet, the misinformation which was just given to this House by the Leader of Opposition, I'm sure she didn't mean to mislead the House. And I'm just worried of what misinformation might have she talked to people in her electorate about this, when clearly she just gave some information, in my view, was incorrect. And again, I've backed it up by reading out the actual legislation, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition spoke about hundreds of people speaking about the bill. Madam Speaker, again, this was a cornerstone to our election policy. This bill was taken out to the electorate right across the Northern Territory, and including the candidates in the crossbencher seats about this bill. This is no surprise to Territorians. It was put out there and advertised and spoken about by all 25 CLP candidates at the time, Madam Speaker. All of us spoke about it. So again, when the Leader of the Opposition said, "Oh, no one came to my election and electorate and spoke about it," well, Madam Speaker, the candidates did speak about it. And Madam Speaker, for the member for Daly, I remember being with the CLP candidate talking about this legislation prior to the election. So for anyone to come in and say, no one spoke to my electorate about that, is clearly incorrect, Madam Speaker. This was brought to the election by the CLP government, by the now Chief Minister Leah Whanokariara's CLP government, as a cornerstone. It was widely advertised. Madam Speaker, I've only been in this parliament for 4 and a bit years, and I haven't seen any piece of legislation that's been more put out to the public than this piece of legislation. And Madam Speaker, I know the Leader of the Opposition spoke about, the scrutiny committee and didn't have any time and they rushed to do it. Madam Speaker, you can't rewrite history. The previous Labor government scrapped the scrutiny committee. They got rid of it. They got rid of the whole committee. So when they talk about lack of public consultation and taking it to this committee and they rushed it and it wasn't put out there, they forget they scrapped it. They got rid of it because that's how they deal with this consultation and this fear that they know it all and really they don't. Because clearly, Madam Speaker, there was an overwhelming victory by the Leah Whanokariara government. This was a cornerstone to our election campaign and our eventual win and taking office. So, Madam Speaker, there's been lots of people who have spoken about this legislation. And again, it's shameful that the opposition talk about how the scrutiny committee didn't do a good job or rushed it or whatever their exact words were, but they scrapped it, Madam Speaker. They got rid of it. Madam Speaker, it's shameful that the opposition is dismissing a key recommendation from two of its own taxpayer-funded reports, Madam Speaker, the reports to kickstart private sector. Remember, Madam Speaker, again, this is a history lesson, but the Territory Economic Reconstruction Commission, the Tursday report, and the Langland Plan for Budget Repair, which were commissioned under the former government, both said and identified a need to overhaul the major project system and establish a single point of coordination for major project investment in the Northern Territory. So their own reports commissioned by the previous government, talked about having a single point of coordination. Territory coordinator. That's exactly what that is, Madam Speaker. It's a single point where, if you fall into this criteria of a significant project or development area, you can use the territory coordinator to help you move your project forward to be able to make a benefit for the territory, an economic benefit, Madam Speaker, because we know that the previous government failed that because there was report after report of how badly the Northern Territory economy was doing under the previous Labor government. And again, Madam Speaker, I'm a bit of a lawyer background and I can go back to a bit more evidence. The previous government hadn't listened to their own reports, done nothing to change it and put us into an $11 billion black hole. So not only is there various reports saying that our economy was bad, the evidence is that there's an $11 billion black hole left by the Labor government. This $11 billion black hole was created over the past 8 years. Madam Speaker, again, not rewriting history, but when the previous Labor government came into power, I think the debt was about $1.8 billion. So in 8 years, it went up to 11. That's over $1 billion a year. That's a lot of zeros, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill is critical to fulfilling our government's cornerstone commitment to the Territory about rebuilding our economy after Labor's economic failures. The Territory Coordinator represents a shift in how we facilitate and develop major projects in the Northern Territory. It will provide oversight and coordination previously unavailable, and speeding up significant projects and delivering tangible benefits to the Northern Territory. And those tangible benefits will be growing population, growing economy, more jobs, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this legislation sends a clear message to Territorians that the Territory is ready to do business. We want your business in the Territory. We want the local mechanic, the local hairdresser, the local service centre to have more people come into their shops because people are coming to the Territory for work in the mining industry, the gas industry, the defence industry, the agriculture industry, and the tourism industry. These 5 key pillars, Madam Speaker, that we need to grow the economy. Unlike the Labor government who just want to tax and spend, we, the CLP government, have got a plan to rebuild the economy, and then we've got 5 key pillars. Madam Speaker, the Territory Coordinator role is designed to give us the competitive edge we sorely need to attract investment that will otherwise go interstate. Madam Speaker, there's been a range of comparisons about how long it takes to get a mining licence in the Territory versus Queensland and versus WA. Unfortunately, we failed. So the Territory Coordinator is there to help us facilitate bringing business to the Northern Territory. In developing the Territory Coordinator model, we have the benefit from learning from previous experiences from interstates such as Queensland and also South Australia, and other states like Western Australia have adopted approaches that will help develop Australia, because that's what we need, Madam Speaker. We need Australia, but we want the Territory to be the best place to do business. A central coordination point across government with the powers to drive processes through is badly needed to see our major projects go from desktop to delivery. Our government will not repeat Labor's legacy of albatrosses, white elephants and major projects that never eventuated, such as Sea Dragon, for example, in my electorate. Madam Speaker, I note that the Legislative Scrutiny Committee heard from several examples of past projects that would have benefited from a Territory Coordinator, such as the Chandler Salt Mine and Santos Barossa project. We know what happened about the Santos Barossa, how bad that was. Madam Speaker, the Territory is unique amongst Australian jurisdictions with its own challenges that require unique and creative solutions.
Take your seat, please, Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Guadja?
The Deputy Chief Minister is misleading. The Barossa project's a federal government project. It's got nothing to do with the Territory Coordinator.
Member for Guadja, we don't use points of order to debate. Standing Order 1. What was that about? My ruling. My ruling is sit down. Please continue.
Speaker, we have looked closely at these interstate examples, and from the work we have developed a framework that is best suited for the Northern Territory, Madam Speaker. We have world-class resources in a world-class location which provides world-class opportunities that we must capture for the benefit of future generations. Madam Speaker, the Territory Coordinator role is designed to harness our capability and capacity across key areas, enhance energy security through gas production, particularly from the Beetaloo, new energy and manufacturing opportunities at Middle Arm, mineral resource development and downstream processing, agriculture production and food security, defence project delivery, and of course, tourism. Madam Speaker, as the Minister for Agriculture, Mining and Energy, I personally look forward to working closely with the Office of the Territory Coordinator to see such projects go through from desktop to delivery, which unfortunately has this previous Labor government failed to do. What this means is that the Coordinator can embed a priority of economic development throughout the decision-making process. Madam Speaker, the Minister for the Territory Coordinator will have the power to designate territory development areas, meaning suitable for particular industry. The Territory Coordinator will be able to target, unlock certain geographical areas, provide more confidence for investors and industry in our Northern Territory. The establishing the Territory Coordinator is not about cutting corners, Madam Speaker. Existing legislation is in place for a reason. This bill is a product of extensive consultation process, ensuring the law and will be a game-changing and a turning point for our Northern Territory economy. Madam Speaker, as I pointed out, the previous government had 8 years and the evidence speaks for itself. We had the worst performing economy. Madam Speaker, many industry and local businesses have indicated they are excited to see the Territory Coordinator and they are looking forward to see what it will mean for their businesses in the Northern Territory. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the Chief Minister, I thank the Legislative Scrutiny Committee for its careful consideration of this bill and its report received on Wednesday, the 12th of March 2025. I particularly note the work of the Chairman of that committee, the Member for Wanguri, and the work of the Deputy Chair, the Member for Goyder, as well as the Member for Drysdale, the Member for Johnson and the Member for Gawajja. Madam Speaker, the Government has carefully considered the recommendations of the Legislative Scrutiny Committee and the Government has accepted 8 recommendations, recommendations 7, 9, 11, 18, 19, 22, 23 and 25, accepted 2 recommendations in part, recommendations 6 and 10, and not accepted 15 recommendations, Madam Speaker, recommendations 1 through 5, 8, 12 through 17, 20, 21 through 24. Legislative amendments to the Territory Coordinator Bill have been circulated, proposing the Assembly amendments to give effect to these changes and also the recommendations we accepted in full or part. The recommendations not accepted by the Government either did not align with the objectives of the bill and our focus on driving economic development for the Territory or are appropriately managed by existing provisions in the bill. Madam Speaker, passage of this bill will allow us to build a vibrant and powerful economy for tomorrow on behalf of all Territorians. I commend the bill to the House.